So welcome to a new guide on this channel, and this occasion is the analog delay from Studio One. Now this is not a review, it's a deep dive guide about this device. Now everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. And if you like the guide, like and subscribe, of course. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, everything is on the description. Okay, so let's start from the beginning and cover the obvious parts. I'm using an emulation of a Juno synthesizer, so I'm going to be using this as a sound source, and I'm going to be going back to the delay. So you have some very common and obvious controls, and this is a deep dive guide, so I need to cover them. So right from the start, you have the time and you have the feedback. So this time control is going to control the time. So if I play something, that is going to be controlling the time. You can go slower or you can go faster. Now, right now, by default, when you throw the plugin into a new channel, is locked on in sync mode, which means that you are using subdivisions. It's synced to the BPM of your whatever DAW or tempo you're using. So you can unsync and you can go in milliseconds, right? So I'm pretty sure you already know this, but again, I need to cover this. Now I'm going to go back to sync and I'm going to be doing 1/8. Something like that. So then you have your feedback control, and this is pretty cool because you have a boost, which is something not so common on all delays. So the feedback is going to be the amount of repetition. So if you go all the way down and you play something, the repetition is just not a lot. And for now, it's on some. I'm gonna be going to off for now. I'm gonna tell you why in a second. So if I play something, notice that the repetition is 1. If I go to some, the repetition, it's twice. We're going to talk about this later. I'm going to leave it in off. But feedback all the way down is just 1 repetition. As I go up, you're going to get more repetitions. And since this is an analog delay, it sounds like that. And at some point, if you go up on the feedback, you're going to start getting crazy feedbacking. Until you go back, you go down, of course. So, okay, so the feedback control will do that. It works just like on any analog delay. If you crank it up, it's going to start, feedbacking itself, and you will get this. Now, but you get the boost option. So the boost, what it will do, it will boost the signal that goes to the feedback loop. So right now, if it's on, and by default it's on, if I turn it off, the feedback will just be a little bit less aggressive. I'm going to be doing something. I'm going to be playing a key. And it's that. But now, if I do boost, this is going to be, the feedback is going to be a little bit more aggressive. So we could use this, this is what it does. It's just boosting whatever goes back into the feedback. So we can use it like this, for example, and I'm going to be playing something, and we are going to be getting the feedback, but it's not going to go crazy. But if I go boost and I play something, we're going to start getting this self-feedbacking. So you can, enable or even do an automation with this by turning it off and prevent this from feedbacking. And maybe at some point you want to get this feedbacking, and then you just turn it off and it's going to back down. So this boost is like going something like this, going less and going more, pretty much. So I'm going to go down on the feedback and I'm going to leave it around there, and I need to talk about the color, and I'm going to go more to the wet side. Of course, you get your global control is going to be all the way dry, so no delay. All the way wet is just the delay. All right, so I'm going to be going to 50% so we can hear what's going on. So the color, what it does, you're going to be applying some low cutting or high cut, low pass and high pass, to the delayed signal, not the signal that goes in. So if I go all the way off, the repetitions are just going to be similar to the signal that goes in. But then if we do some low cutting and high cutting, the repetitions are just going to be darker. And if I keep cutting up, according to cutting down, the repetitions are darker. We're just, kind of EQing this, just cutting from the lows and cutting from the highs. And since this is an analog delay, kind of a tape analog delay, you get a drive, kind of just to get a little bit of a tape saturation. If I go and crank it up, you're going to hear that the repetitions and all of this just reacts on the repetitions. We get that overdrive, that saturation, that distortion there. If I go down, we don't get it. Right, so that's the drive. So you can get a little bit of that, tape saturation goodness. So this side, the delay and the color, it's just pretty simple to understand. I'm pretty sure you already knew about this. So we need to talk about the LFO and then this section right here at the bottom. So this is the modulation section. Now, one cool thing that you get with analog tape is that you get a natural modulation of the pitch and variation on the repetitions. And this is, of course, very natural from analog delay. Now, this is a plugin, but we have a lot of control of what's going on in terms of modulation, which is not something that you really get on a real tape unit. And I say this as a good thing. I don't know if you own or maybe you owned a hardware tape delay. I did. It's beautiful. But it's also a pain in the ass because this is a plugin. It will not wear down or wear off or whatever you want to call it. It's just not going to go into ruin. You don't need to do maintenance. It's not reactive to cold or hot temperatures. So it has no bad day. So it's just not going to go bad. Real old vintage kind of a hardware units have good days and bad days. And sometimes you can use it and sometimes you cannot use it. And, sometimes it's not that good. So having the ability of having all this controls, all this control over the repetitions and the modulation is just really great. So this is this section. So the LFO will just modulate the time pretty much. So we are going to be getting that pitch detuning that we get with analog delay. So right now, it's almost off. It's 25%, so we don't get a lot. If I go to 0%, we just get nothing, right? We get pretty much nothing. So if I go to the amount and I go up to something more aggressive, we're going to start hearing, that modulation. So of course, the speed is going to decide how this modulation, this waveform will modulate the times. And if you think about what it's doing behind the scenes, what it's doing is pretty much doing something like this. If I unsync it, it's modulating the times in a very kind of a short fashion. Now, if I go aggressive, the modulation is going to be a little bit more aggressive, so we are going to be able to hear the times. And if I do it manually, you can actually replicate this. I'm going really aggressive so we can really tell the difference. So in this case, I'm just going to keep it unsynced for now. And I'm going to go back to, I'm going to leave it undotted. I'm going to go back to the amount. So behind the scenes, this is doing this, is modulating the time. And when on an analog delay, when we modulate the time, we get this, this pitch detuning. So the amount is how much we are going to do. If we do a lot, we are going to be getting this crazy sound. If we do a little bit, we are going to be getting a little bit of that magic. Now, the speed is how fast the modulation is going to be. If I do it slow, it's going to be something like that. But if I go fast, it's going to be much faster. Something like that, for example. I'm just giving you a visual representation. So if we go really fast, it's going to sound something like that, no? Now you can go maybe around right here and maybe 43 or something like that is considered kind of a normal speed. And the amount, if you do a little bit, it's not going to be super aggressive, but notice that if you go really up, it's going to start sounding a little bit weird. So maybe with the LFO, just using very small amounts, it's a good idea if you want a more normal sound. If you want a more radical sound, of course, going up on the amount is going to give you that vibe. Now, in terms of the speed, you can go manually, just like we've been doing, or you can sync it to whatever tempo you have on your DAW. It's going to be a little bit more controlled this way. Now, remember that what the LFO it's doing is modulating the time up and down. How it's modulating, it's doing by using this, which is the waveform. By default, it's a triangle, and we can see it's a triangle. So if I go to this one, instead of using a triangle, it's going to use a sine wave, which is going to be kind of a little bit more smoother around the corners. So it's not so different from the triangle. right? And if I go to the other one, it's a little bit different. Now, if I go right here, now we can start, picking out the difference because this is a saw. It has a very fast kind of a transient, which can start very fast and then it will decay down, but always start very fast on the modulation. Now the other one is very different. It's a square. It's going to be like on and off. So it's all the way up and all the way down. Now we're using very small amounts. It's hard to pick it up, but if I go up, notice it's all the way up and all the way down. Right here, we have a smoothing down, and right here is gonna smooth up and down. But we have a kind of a rounded corners, and in this one we don't have rounded corners. So all of them just sound very different when you go up in the amount, when you make it a little bit more noticeable. So that's it. If you want a little bit of that motion, that detuning, well, going to the amount and selecting the speed and the waveform is gonna just do that trick. So then if you go at the bottom, you have the motor. Now the motor, it plays a part on the modulation. So all of this just belongs to the modulation section. Now the motor is going to mess with the speed of the tape. So for now, I'm just going to go maybe to 0 on the amount of LFO. So we are not LFOing, right? We just get the delay. So the factor, what it will do, it will mess with these timings. So if I go all the way down, it's going to be playing at some speed. And if I go all the way up, it's going to play at a different speed. So at 1, it means that this is the time. It's doing whatever is that you're doing right here. So if I play something, is that speed. If I go down, we are doing half the speed. And if I go up, we are doing twice as the speed of the time that we have right here. Now, maybe you're wondering, why do we get this? Why not just going right here and selecting the time that we want? Well, all the vibe, the vibe of this plugin is just to get that kind of an analog, vintage kind of a vibe or sound. So vintage gear will not stay in tune, and sometimes it's gonna go out of sync. You don't have a sync. So just modulating this to maybe lower values is gonna give you that inconsistencies that you get when whenever we are not using sync or whenever you use real analog delays or units. So right now, it's just not entirely out of in sync. Is a little bit offset. So that's what you get the factor. So you can offset it and get that vintage analog kind of a vibe, just a little bit more, right? It's gonna work even more if we do a little bit of pitch modulation. So that's why you get the factor. You can go faster, you can go slower. And it's just going to offset whatever timing you have. Right now, we are not playing with anything. We could bring a click track, and we're going to see that when we move this, it's going to start offsetting from the click track. So again, if you want a more natural tape delay, that inconsistency that you get, the motor and the LFO is just gonna do that trick. Now then we have the inertia, and I'm gonna need the right example just to show you this. I'm gonna go maybe to amount of 0. I'm going to do a feedback of 40 something, whatever. And on this one, I'm going to go to maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go to 1.4. Okay, so I'm going to bring the motor, I'm going to, the factor, and I'm going to leave it at 1. That's it. Now the inertia for now, I'm just going to keep it all the way down, If I play it, we just get the delay, right? Pretty simple. Now, if I go all the way up on the inertia, I'm going to be playing the same. Pretty much the same, and we get that. So there is no change. There is no change at all. So the inertia, what it will do, it will pretty much mess with the factor or when we move the timings. And let me give you an example. I'm gonna go to inertia all the way down, and I'm gonna go to factor all the way down, and I'm gonna be playing something. And when I play it, I'm going to be moving this factor all the way up. So we're going from slow to fast, and this is gonna kind of a mess with the pitch, right? Same thing if I go down on the factor. If I go up and I go down, it's just doing it. So what is the difference with the inertia? So if inertia is all the way down, it's going to adjust the timings when we move the factor or we move the times. So all the way down and I go up, the change is really fast. But if I go all the way up on the inertia, all the way down, now how it's going to adjust the times right here is going to be in a slow fashion. Notice it's like, it's going down in that fashion. It's just very slow. And the other way, if I do the same thing, I'm going to be playing something. It's very fast. The adjustment is super fast. But the inertia is slow. It's just gonna, mess with the times right here. How it will adjust the times. And if you hover, it will tell you something like this: delay, speed, acceleration, and deceleration. The thing is that it doesn't tell you that you kind of need to modulate this in order to hear how it's adjusting all of this. Now, still, this plays a part when you do a modulation, because if you think about this, the LFO is modulating the time. So this is going to be how this is going to be adjusted. If I make this a little bit more aggressive, and maybe I'm going to go to speed of, I don't know, maybe something around there, and feedback 50%, I'm going to keep it in 1/4. If I play something, we can hear the modulation. And if I go to factor and I make it faster, something like that. And notice it's going up and down, the speed, the LFO is just going up and down in time. So the inertia plays a part. If I go to the 0, the adjustments are going to be a little bit more aggressive. If I go to inertia up, the adjustments are just going to be a little bit more smooth. If I go all the way down, it's just going to be a little bit different. Notice that the changes are faster. So this is what the inertia does, and you kind of need the right example to explain this because it's a little bit weird. But that's what it does. You adjust pretty much the acceleration and deceleration of the timings when you modulate them. I'm going to go to amount of nothing for now. So we know what this does. We know the motor, the color, the delay. We need to talk about the width right now. So off means pretty much off. If I play something and I go up, we pretty much get the same thing. Let me just bring a plugin so we can see what's going on the stereo field. Okay, so now if I play something, we can hear what is going on. We can actually see what's going on right here. So when I play the synthesizer, the sound, the main sound, the one that goes out, is stereo, but the repetition is mono. And if I go to the synthesizer, we can see that I'm using a course. So the signal that goes out of the synth and goes inside into the delay is stereo. If I disable the course, now the signal that goes out of the synthesizer is going to be mono. So this is going to be receiving a mono signal, and the repetition is going to be mono. But if I do stereo, the repetition is going to be mono. And let me kind of adjust this for now. I'm going to be putting it right here. The initial sound is stereo, but the repetition is mono. So this is where we handle this. But it doesn't matter if we do width 100%. It's still not going to work. Right? So right here, we need to use the ping pong mode. So this is not really a ping pong mode. It's ping pong if you go to some, but it's a different thing if you go to 2 channels. So 2 channels mean that whatever that comes in right here on this delay is going to be from channel left and channel right. So if the signal is stereo, if you have a stereo instrument, this is going to be making the signal or the delay stereo. So now if I play it, we can hear the repetitions are stereo, left and right. And the width is going to decide if it's going to be stereo or it's going to be mono. You can still mono the signal, but the main signal that goes in is still going to be stereo. If I go up on the width, it's going to be stereo. So if you have a stereo signal and your repetitions are mono, you need to go to 2 channels. So then you have the ping pong, which is going to be the sum. So this is the real ping pong, and we're going to hear it going from left and right. Right, so my main sound, and the repetitions are going to be, and I'm going all the way down in feedback. So the repetition is in the left. We hear the first one in the left, and then the other one is going to be the right. Left and right. Right. And of course, if you go higher on the feedback, we're going to get a lot more repetitions of the same. Pretty understandable. Now, what happens if I go down on the width and I do the same thing? The repetitions are mono, so it doesn't matter that you're using ping pong because the width is just mono. If I play it again, it's going to be left and right. So let me go all the way down on the feedback. So you have a swap right here. So this is going to swap or just going to change where the ping pong starts. If I play it, we can hear that it's going to be in the left first and then at the right. Left, right, left, right. If I swap it, now it's going to be right, left, right, left. That's, pretty much the main purpose of this. Now, remember that if you, again, you need a stereo signal if you want to make this to work. If I do off, this is going to still work, but you have a mono signal and then in the left and right. So you still get away with that, but you need to be on 100%. And then remember that off is just going to be everything mono. And that's it pretty much for this plugin. It's a very simple but powerful analog delay. So if you liked all this and you learned something, remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can just go to the links at the description. You have PayPal, you have a link for, you have the Google Thanks now, that button, Google Thanks. Or you can join Patreon. If you want to be a 1-month patron, of course you can. So thank you for watching and see you on the next one.